And now, this is the time to talk about our next panel, which is about monetization. And whenever we talk about monetization, how can we forget to talk about brands and agencies as well? Next up, we have the panel Boarding the Brand Bus. Interesting, where our panelists will shed light on how brands are now setting their foot in the kids category and are exploring various innovative ways to make the most of this sector. And for this discussion, I would like to welcome on stage our esteemed panelist for the day, Mr. Krishna Rao Buddha, who is there with us right now. And I would like to welcome him on stage. He's the Senior Category Head of Parle. Can we have you on stage, sir? With a huge round of applause. I can see only a few faces in the hall, but please, I would request if you could give a big cheers to sir. You can take your respective chairs, sir. We have Mr. Tarandeep Singh Sikhon, Marketing Director, Kidzania. We would request you to kindly come on stage. Okay, so they're coming from the speaker's lounge, I believe. You can please join us. Miss Sonali Bhattacharya, who is the Head of Marketing, Kids TV Network, Viacom 18. Welcome, ma'am. You're looking gorgeous today. We have Mr. Ambi Parameswaran, Independent Brand Coach and Founder, brandbuilding.com. We are having the honor of inviting you as well, sir, Mr. Ambi. He's there. And then to moderate this session, we have Mr. Vinit Karnik, who is the Head Sports, Esports and Entertainment, Group M South Asia. Welcome, sir. We are glad to have you here. And over to you, Mr. Vinit, requesting you to please take it ahead from me.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks, Anil and the team at Animation Express to having us here. So it's been great. So good afternoon to all of you. So we'll just get started quickly since we are running a little behind schedule. So very clearly, I think the topic for today's discussion is about boarding the brand bus, which very clearly means that from an animation standpoint, obviously the industry is looking at advertisers, brands to support the industry from an advertising point in terms of how can you leverage the power of brands and advertising in various different avenues to monetize. We really have an absolutely solid and an interesting panel out here, and from a learning perspective, it can't get bigger than this from very clearly from my lens, because you have a Parle sitting here, you have Viacom, you have Ambi, who's been in the industry, veteran. I mean, from the time I came to the industry, we have been looking up to him. You have Taranjeet, who's from Kidzania, very, very new and a novel concept, which is doing so well in India. So without wasting more time from me, I would like to open this up for my esteemed panelists, and I would like to come to Ambi Parameswaran, who possibly is a brand guru, I would say, and an industry veteran who would have worked with so many brands, so many categories, so many different challenges over a period of so many years. So Ambi, please help us with your perspective in terms of how do you see this elephant in the room, which obviously the industry has been battling. So I mean, I've been very closely following animation industry and the kids space for over 2 decades now, and the problem seems to be the same. I mean, everybody speaks about how can the brands, the advertising part of it is very under-indexed, and I completely agree with that. So how do you see it? Any, if you could throw some light and open this panel, actually will help all of us to put it in the perspective and could be a great segue for the next 30 odd minutes.
Yeah, thanks Vineet for those kind words, and thanks Anil for inviting me here. I'm probably, I've spent more years in advertising than probably many of you Indians started in advertising.
Or maybe some of people's age,
yeah, some people are probably younger than number of years I've spent in this whole business, right? 40 plus years. So, and I don't think any of you have probably had the occasion of meeting and spending time with Ram Mohan and creating content with Ram Mohan. So I've done all that. Big question is that how do you get more and more brands to come on to using animation, whether it is television or digital or whatever. So there are a few issues, in terms of the kids category. The kids category is big, but not all the brands are active in terms of advertising. They're not probably spending as much as we would like. And we were discussing it in the speaker lounge. One of the problems with the kid category is that kids tend to consume advertising like content. I remember discussing this with my confectionery client, Parry Confectionery, KK, who later went on to become CEO of Coke. So we were launching a new confectionery brand at that time, and I said, look, we should launch it now because there are school holidays are going on. He said, no, Ambi, school holidays is the wrong time. I was, school holidays, kids are at home, they'll be watching more TV. Yaar. Us time pe advertise. He said, no, school holidays is the wrong time. And we got discussing. I said, why? So he said, and we got into this debate that kids consume candy advertising and say cookie advertising or whatever advertising almost like content. They don't see the difference between an ad and an animation program. And if you advertise to them during school time, they watch the content and they go and talk to their friends the next day, right? And so it gets viralized naturally and gets spread. So I mean, finally we decided to do the campaign and then did the advertising during school time and not during school time, but when the schools were running and not during the school holidays because kids tend to consume. But the problem is that since most kit products optimize for reach, you sacrifice OTS. So that's the time I learned this, that look, you don't care about OTS. You need reach. You need to reach as many kids as possible. Even if you give them 2 OTS, it's enough because then they will absorb it. They'll absorb it like sponge and next day they'll go and talk to their friends and they'll multiply it for you. So I don't know whether that has changed. I'm talking of stories, when you talk guy like me on the panel, you will get stories from the 80s and the 90s and all that. So, and later working on ITC Sunfeast, again we saw that happening. Kids tend to consume advertising like content. But question is, how do you get more and more kids brands, quote unquote, advertise? And how do you get them to spend significant amount of money? I don't have the answer to that, and we discussed it in the lounge. So point is, can we look at more ways of innovating and getting brands on board to advertise, whether it is in terms of product integration, brand integration into content, or sponsored content, or specific content produced for for brands. And that's probably the way the industry needs to look at how to monetize, how to expand the pie, because the pie is very small. So you need to expand the
Sure.
pie, right?
Absolutely.
That's my initial comment here.
Sure, fair enough. Now that's a great segue, Sonali, for you to come in because you obviously are at the center of action in terms of at the receiving end because you are a platform, you are investing significant amount of your top dollars in creating original content, acquiring some of the content, dubbing some of the content, and so on and so forth. How do you see this? I mean, what has been your learning? What has been your experience? Then that's a segue to maybe Krishna to possibly respond as an advertiser, right? So, I mean, over to you.
So, I'm going to take a little while to answer that because kids as a target group, and we were just speaking about it in the lounge, a child who's 4 years old, a child who's 8 years old, and a 12-year-old kid behave very differently. So within the same TG BARC rating that is thrown up every Thursday, you have 3 mini target groups within that large TG. And what we have learned over the years, and I think the learning curve has steeply risen in the past 2.5 years of the lockdown, where there has been such a surge in adulting in kids where they've been exposed to so many very grim realities of the world while being cooped up indoors with their parents, that a part of them grew up overnight and a part of them still wanted to be the rebellious child. So if I could use the word that maybe your 10-year-old today is actually a schizoid in a way, where he wants to be moralistic and help the parents, and at the same time escape into a world which is very, very naughty and devoid of any worries. So as brand custodians uh, of kids as a TG, what we put out has to be very innovative, what Ambi also said, which is and this TG is so dynamic, so the way you reach out to them literally changes every day. The content that you put out has to be agnostic across all platforms. That's another learning that we've had. And kids are very receptive to bite-sized content versus just a very long format that we've been used to in the past few years. We see a lot of brands coming on board for offerings like that. There's a lot of curation of content and brands which didn't exist earlier, and you have this entire wave of influencers these days who have taken over the screens and can do wonders with your brand and characters in terms of reaching it out to the kids effectively. And that's where we see a lot of integration, and I'm sure you'll get into that in greater detail. You see a lot of brands coming on board for things like that instead of just a normal FCT playout that they would pay for earlier. And of course, a lot of the experiential avenues have opened up again, which was completely sealed off in the past 2 years. And I don't know if it's something akin to revenge travel, revenge shopping, revenge tourism. You see revenge entry into malls and multiplexes.
So Sonali, are you in some way saying the goalpost for the content creator economy needs to be relooked from a segmentation standpoint? Because see, typically what I hear most people in the animation sector talk about is about storytelling, it's about animated features and stuff like that. But what I hear you say is more about experiences, more about creating customized content which an advertiser is preferring, maybe the influencer part you spoke about. So are you saying a clear-cut goalpost change in the creator economy?
I would think so, because I think the time of one size fits all has clearly gone. And access to so many devices and packages that is at the fingertips of every child and parent now. People want to consume content that is designed for them. And if they don't find it on your platform, they have enough options to go and seek it elsewhere. And I think that has also given birth to, I mean, these days, honestly, to create good content, all you need is a phone, if I were to put it very bluntly.
So guys, that's a massive message that we are getting on this one. Huh? I mean, in the first 7 minutes in the conversation, what we hear Ambi talk and Sonali say is a huge change in the mindset for me at least. So I'm changing the goalpost myself and jumping the gun, and I'll get you in a bit, Krishna, because I want Kidzania to talk, because I think what you guys have created, and I have been fortunate to be a part of that at the inaugural time, and I'm sure it's grown leaps and bounds. So Gagan, tell us, I mean, this is a great segue for you, and that's the reason I thought I'll change the goalpost and bring to you experiences. Okay, Sonali spoke about the attention span of kids growing up too faster and want more than what they see on the screen to get engaged. Your thoughts?
So first and foremost, I'll completely second Sonali with bifurcating the kids into various age groups. So at Kidzania, I won't dwell on the concept because we are short on time, but we have these experiences where kids come, role play,
Absolutely.
and live their day.
And we see serious advertising support coming in as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So all this is possible for us only because we have brand partners whom we call as purpose partners. Because in reality, I cannot have a kid selling a car which is a Kidzania car versus a kid selling a Nexa car. So that adds into the realism. But what is very important for us whenever we create these experiences, and we've launched around 6 experiences just post-COVID, we've realized that we've been integrating a very phygital experience. So although Kidzania is all about real play, they have to, play with the brand literally. But we use animation or we use visual clues to add to the experience. So one example would be we recently launched Innovation Lab. Again, no plugins intended with Top Scholar, although it's an edtech platform. But step one for kids is we are teaching them how to save the marine life. So again, we have iPads, tablets, animated. They have to first make their own tools. The animation then goes on to a big touch screen where they have to go and then use those tools and figure out how to save the animals or clean the ocean for. So we've taken such experiences built into the phygital world, and we've seen that kids are absolutely loving it. And on the contrary, we have an animation studio at Kidzania where kids learn animation, and we have Toons and Tinkle both as our purpose partners. What we saw is the number of kids visiting the establishment exponentially increased once they got a chance to make stories with Supandi, versus earlier when it was not a branded experience. So I'm not an expert in terms of how animation can build more, get more on the advertising front, but I think animation can and is being used in various experiences. We had a huge Lego station at our city mall recently, and I saw most of the experiences had animation built into the overall play. So I think this is one area which, of course.
So Gagan, one interesting point you're talking about is about the creator economy and the content that so you have got partners in terms of animation studios, right? So what is the kind of stuff you would want this room to possibly come to you with? Because I think I would want to believe that most of the room would have creators from a large standpoint. How do you want them to respond to someone like Kidzania? What do you want to see them doing for you?
So see, so on the contrary, we also advertise. We've advertised on Nick, which is the preferred channel. We pick up slots. We identify where we want to go. There is so much of content. Like Sir rightly said, what we look at is purely reach. Okay, today we cannot quantify or as a brand take a gamble as to this is one content piece or this is one piece only where I can park my entire monies. For us, it's a mix. I would rather give a completely different opinion. At Kidzania, we try to target the parent first and then the kid. So, of course, that is one play which I would say. So, we've been advertising, we've done some partnerships with kid bloggers, mommy bloggers who create that kind of content. So, if there is something which can, be creatively done with them, which mixes a bit of real stage and animation, that is something which I would be very much open to.
Okay. So now I'm coming to the man in the room, which I'm personally a fanboy for the company that he represents, the product that he represents. Okay, Parley. Okay, so it's a fanboy moment because I think I'm a big fan of the products and the way they have created the whole experience from a consumer standpoint. And the elephant in the room, actually, you can help us because you're from a target consumer standpoint, you would obviously be almost 30 to 40% targeting the kids. And if the question in the room is how can that 30-40% of your media mix can change to maybe 50% is what people in the room would be interested in. So we have heard Ambi talk about experiences. Sonali actually got a big change in the way kids consume content today. We heard about the way Kidzania is changing habits and the way they are integrating the studios and content. Your thoughts, because you are eventually spending on Viacom, you are spending on Kidzania. How do you see the whole story panned out? And ladies and gentlemen, for you who are not aware about the man here, I think he's spent about 20 plus years in Parley. He has seen the whole diverse change in habits, the change in culture, the change in media mix, and the change in habits. So all yours.
Thank you, Vinit. Yes, so currently from a standpoint where we have about say 40 to 50% of our audience or product mix targeted at kids, and accordingly in that ratio we are currently trying to appease that audience via, of course, television advertising, kids genre, and of course any and every platform that's available, including a Kidzania for that matter, where we have actually two of our factories, biscuit making and candy making, at both the locations. Okay, yeah. So having said that, I think so first I'd just like to add what Ambi mentioned when he spoke about launch of a confectionery candy not during the vacation period. I think there is one more logic and reason why that is not done, is that once the schools are open, so kids usually get a pocket money, and eventually it results into numbers, and that is extremely important for anybody. I'm saying who's like, no, so as a marketer, I would say. And yeah, as far as Vineet, when you said how do you increase this pie, I think definitely the onus is more on the content creators on the platforms, how to squeeze as much monies. And we also spoke about innovations. We also spoke about novel ideas. Okay, so one is plain vanilla FCT. But if you typically, people generally, broadcasters talk about impact, but a lot of marketers actually sort of refrain, because somewhere there is no business sense, because the moment you speak about impact, suddenly we talk about very high big monies, and suddenly we realize that it does not make business sense. So my point of view is, in case if somebody is coming with innovations, or like, so various integrations, etc., any innovative concept, so long as it is viable, feasible, and it's going to be a win-win, I think more and more marketers, more and more advertisers are going to pump in their ad dollars on such collaborations. So for example, now for one of our key brands, flagship brands, Parle-G, we've collaborated with Green Gold. We've used Chota Beam as a character, and we have launched a SKU under Parle-G, which actually says Parle-G Chota Beam, and actually it does extremely well for us. And as a result of which, we've continued our association. So generally during vacation time, so a lot of advertisers, a lot of kids platform come to us, approach us, say, and just as the schools are about to reopen, this is the time, and they say, okay, we are doing a school contact program, and can you partner us? Actually, yes, of course, it does immense sense if certain broadcaster is reaching about 600, 800 odd schools across, say, 6 mega metros or so. So long as the proposition is, if the child is able to remember a particular broadcaster had come, say maybe a Nick for that matter, and so kid should be able to recall, okay, I had someone come at my school, did some activation with Nick, but there was a brand called Parle, for example, and a Parle was able to actually influence or could make a lasting impression over me. Then actually I would say that the association has really worked out well, and things work, and I would really look forward to having such association year after year and every opportune moment.
So in your school contact programs or experiences that you offer to kids, where do you see merchandise playing a role? Because one of the significant aspects of kids content or animation is merchandise, and that's a massive industry globally. How do you see that? How do you use merchandising to create experiences?
So we've done several promotions in terms of we've taken rights from various partners, and we create maybe a deck of cards, like trading cards or tattoos, stickers, etc. So we've had collaborations with several brands like Angry Birds or Scooby Doo, and we have been exploring, and in fact, Chota Beam as an example as well, where and even WWE for that matter, trading cards actually, and as giveaways, we use a lot of T-shirts which are like branded T-shirts with all the merchandise that's available, and we're like, so those are various avenues where Parle has actually made use of merchandise.
So what I also hear Krishna say is about So monetization does not necessarily happen at the advertising level only. There are multiple tiers of experiences which a brand looks for. Advertising through television or streaming as a medium possibly could be one of it. But then you have got multiple layers that get added, like merchandising, like live experience, and then so on and so forth. So that's very clearly a message from a creator economy, or for people who are possibly looking at various different marketing strategies, or creators creating strategies for what you want to eventually create from a content perspective. I want to get you in, Sonali, here, because another question that I hear most of the people in the room say is about the acquisition models, because the budgets of broadcasters or streaming platforms haven't changed in India for the last 2 decades. The purse size is the same, but the costs have increased of creating content. So how are you managing that from a P&L perspective? How do you look at that market? Because that's quite significant, because the easiest way to look at it is get some global syndicated content, dub it into multiple regional languages in India, and just put it on channel. I mean, how do you, any thoughts on that?
So, currently, if you look at the way the landscape is in the animation industry, on one end of the spectrum, you have a complete boom of local IPs, and we've heard Chota Bheem being used so effectively. There are so many characters, Motu Patlu, and you can, the list is endless. And if you look at the trend, in the past 3 to 4 years, on an average, broadcasters are launching local IPs, maybe 6 or 7 new shows every year. And I think that's an underestimation. There's more than that.
That's very encouraging, actually.
Yeah. And it's more than that. And so that's really encouraging for India. And not only do we create for India, a lot of our content travels abroad as well, which is a wonderful sign. So that is one set of the pie. And the other one which you see is a huge increase in anime. You see a lot of acquired content which is wonderfully dubbed in local languages in India and put on the platforms, and they do really well. So there is an appetite for acquired content, albeit dubbed locally, because we like to see it in with that Indian twist. So that is going to exist for a while. And clearly the boom of user-generated content, which is something that the birth of short-form video platforms has given a huge increase to. And kids are very much at the forefront of that. So we cannot dismiss that content which exists on other platforms. So in terms of balancing the P&L, yes, it's a tricky act. And a large part of your budgets always rest on creating wonderful content, because that is what our product is. And if your product is not superlative, no matter how much you market, it's not going to make any sense. So that is a challenge, and we hope that the advertising pie increases, because it will only give birth to better content. And I thought the piece on merchandising was very interesting, what we just spoke about now. And merchandising also no longer exists only in the physical domain. If you look at NFTs, if you look at the whole explosion of collecting things, it's not just physical anymore. It exists even in the digital realm. You have the entire metaverse that has taken over, and again, kids are not too far behind in that space as well. So there's clearly lots to do, and there are a lot of spaces in which we need to occupy the mind space of a child. It's just not traditional anymore.
Super. You spoke about UGC, okay? Now, I want to link UGC with the whole influencer piece that's happening with us. And obviously, kids at such a nascent stage get influenced very fast, yeah? How do you see UGC meeting the influencer thing, and how does that pan out from a content perspective?
So, the beauty about UGC is every child's 1 minute to fame. Everybody wants to be a star. And as I said, all you need is a good phone these days. And even if you look at the biggest brands like Apple, they're advertising their camera more than the features of the phone.
And we have seen in the digital economy, we have seen a 3-year-old, 4-year-old creating videos at a
Yes.
very, very regular. So that's exactly the shift which I wanted you to touch upon.
So, as I said, this new breed of influencers which are growing rapidly by the day, of course, you have to filter them and choose the ones that are safe and relatable to your brand. They do a great job of curating content for the TG. Your TG itself becomes the champion of your product. The 8-year-old child is such a super fan of Motu Patlu. If he starts creating original content, dancing with Motu Patlu and putting it up, you won't believe the number of times that is shared and engaged with. It is incomparable. And we spoke about the power of the characters, and that's the beauty of animation, because it really takes you into a world of escape and fantasy that no other category can give you that release. So if you effectively merge user-generated content with the strength of the tunes, the bonds that the characters have, I think you have a very good thing going in terms of capturing attention, at least.
Fantastic. I have a childlike feeling right now, and I want to jump to Ambi with a question. But before that, okay, Anil, I think, wants to ask something.
Yeah, so this is to both Ambi and to my dear friend from Parle. What is the most precious asset you have on your pack, on your biscuit pack? Tell me what's the most precious asset? Apart from the taste of Parle Ji.
The name, the brand name.
No, apart from that. There is something I've grown up with when I was, I think it's been running
You're
for...
talking about Parle Ji, the baby.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, why haven't you evolved that into a character? And, Ambi's views on taking brand characters who are embodying a brand and taking them into creating content, creating a storyline to further connect. For instance, the baby girl could become a super baby eating biscuits when she gets super, and you could partner with Nick to create a show. I mean, I think it's more recognizable than many other characters on television, the baby.
Agree.
Anil, not allowed. That's a trick question, honestly. All yours.
No, it's okay. But I would let Ambi answer that actually, because he may probably some example from Asian Paints or so. Yeah, even Amul for that matter.
Yeah, it's a good thought, Anil, because I think that kind of moves to the area that what is the animation industry doing in terms of evangelizing the use of animation with clients, right? With brands, right? So I'm sure, sitting with a biscuit, I don't think of doing something with that baby or doing something with that. But if some enterprising, animation creator comes and says, I've got this idea, I've created this 2-minute clip, why don't you take a look, right? So all industries today, whether it is print, TV, they're all saying, no, we're not selling time, we are selling solutions. Like we spoke about, right? I mean, he said about how they can give connect in, Nick can give connect in schools, right? So I'm not just buying time on Nick, but I'm also getting an opportunity to present my products to 800 schools across India, right? I mean, Hindu has this whole network of schools they go to, they have Hindu for schools, right? It's completely. So what is the animation industry doing in terms of quote unquote educating and evangelizing clients to do exactly the kind of stuff what you're saying, right? As a brand owner, I don't even, creating a cartoon character is not even in my imagination. But then you say, no, you got those nice yellow stripes and you got the little girl. Can we create a game? The girl and the stripes or whatever, and, go and show it to the client and say, look, it's a 2-minute thing we've done. We can actually convert this into a 10-minute film or whatever. I mean, you have to invest money in that. The client may say, yeah, it's a good idea. We can do it. So it's up to, we can all sit in this room and lament saying clients don't understand animation, they are beating down the cars, yeah, you can go on. The flip side is you say, look, clients don't understand animation, I'm taking it as a positive. So therefore, I will go and handhold them into doing things which they would have thought of doing. And what is it? Yeah, what is 1 crore for a client? Nothing, right? So you evangelize it and then get them to spend the money, right? And do things. Yeah, exactly. So you expand the horizon. It's not just about buying an ad in Nick, but it's about actually buying an ad in Nick and also getting to meet 5,000 kids in 800 schools or whatever. Suddenly your game changes.
So Anil, what I will do, I will take this question on behalf of Krishna, and if I'm going to be off, just take it. Okay. So if I have to answer this question, because we are also in a way talking to advertisers from a marketing perspective, from a brand building perspective, right? So he is in the business of selling biscuits, boss, very clearly. He is not in the business of ideas. That's our job, right? So the onus is on people like us to go to him saying, "Hey, boss, while you are doing a fantastic job by selling biscuits, let me take this and build a brand on the back of that baby or the tree or the yellow stripes," right? That's onus is on us. Okay. Now on that note, I have a question for MB, because I think we are in a universe today which is completely white canvas, and we can actually at a stage where we can recreate the imagination the way we can imagine, and that's the opportunity I see in that white canvas. Sonali spoke about UGC, she spoke about NFTs, metaverse very, very briefly. Now, these are massive words, okay? Now, I am just back a week back from the US, and I visited the Meta Center's only experience center that they have created in Birmingham. And it's mind-boggling the kind of work that they are doing from an experience standpoint. And before you, someone who's a veteran, how do you see this space panning out, the whole digital economy, the metaverse, the Web 3.0 that we keep speaking in the marketing community? How is that impact going to be coming to the animation industry? Because kids are going to be the most likely early adopters to this rather than my age group for sure. And what's the possible advice or message you have for the group out here in terms of how can they embrace this? Because very clearly your answer was opportunity lied with the people here who could have come and pitched it to Parley, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this entire meta thing, I don't understand it fully, but I've seen car launches being done on metaverse. I think your agency only did something for Volvo.
The Volvo, yeah.
Right, and I wrote about it. So there are going to be opportunities where brands can come on to using animated characters and getting children to play with them in the metaverse. And therefore, but the whole challenge here is you got to put a sugar coating on all this. The sugar coating which works is learning, right? So if the whole thing is coated as learning, that you actually go into the metaverse and play with numbers and learn the numbers. You put 1 and 1 together and you get 2, and 2 and 2 together get 4, stuff like that. You'll be able to get the mothers, to say yes, and the kids to actually learning become fun. I mean, the Byju's success is that, right? I mean, all their videos are funny, etc., etc. So you have to do that, and then maybe things will open up, in a different direction. But, the other question is, by and large, our industry, our whole country is highly under-branded, right? And so as consumers become more and more knowledgeable, more and more brands will emerge, and what I call the brandification index will slowly go up. It's true of, we spoke about apparel, which are unbranded, and suddenly you will start, apparel getting branded, confectionery getting branded, other things, cosmetics, children cosmetics can get branded, all sorts of things will get branded. And then the opportunity for animation to not just do classical animation, but also do these kind of, metaverse and things like that. But I again say that it is up to people in this room to go and convince.
The whole AR and VR experiences, it's all about animation, right? It's all about creation.
when we saw the launch of, I think, Mahindra XUV at Auto a few years ago, when suddenly I think, a cheetah jumps onto the car, and then, Anand Mahindra touching it and all that. And it was like mind-blowing, right? Suddenly a cheetah arrived. And the same thing in later Nano, with Mr. Tata appearing as a image, and then the Nano drives out and Mr. Tata steps out. Now, that was then, right? That was 10, 15 years ago. Today, probably that can be done on the desktop. I mean, tomorrow, you can actually have, like you said, Motu Patlu appearing in 3D in front of the class and, juggling and teaching something in some geography or physics or something to children using those VR, AR kind of images. That's where it'll go. That's where, all of us have seen those books and, globe aisa hai, and this is the solar system. Can you imagine actually projecting the solar system in 3D in class and telling the children, look, this is the earth and this is the sun and this thing, this is how it moves? Wow, it's going to be mind. And I'm sure those technologies are there. It will come. If not this year, next year, year after, schools will have not just laptop, but also little, whatever 3D projectors where they can actually project, project the earth, the rotating earth, the moon, and the solar system and stuff like that. I mean, that's where it's going. And kids are going to be there. I mean, today's kids are going to see it that way. We saw it all in books. Our children saw it on TV. And computers, and next generation is going to see it on AR, VR. Right? And a lot of it will be animation, blah, blah, blah.
In fact, interestingly, I have seen one entire cataract operation, a master class on cataract operation being done on an AR, VR immersive experience. And I tell you, after looking at that for about 30 minutes, you will feel that actually you can operate this yourself without being a doctor. It's so immersive, it's so real time. You can actually, I've just come back and I've seen a baseball match through Oculus, and the experience that I've had seeing a baseball match in the stadium and in the comfort of your home with an experience glasses, it's unreal. So very clearly, the experiential aspect of animation needs to come in more alive. I think the needle has changed, the content, the consumption has changed. The kid of 2000s and 2005 is very different than a kid of 2022. So that is the needle, that is the change that needs to be adopted from an ideation perspective, from a monetization perspective, because that's the change which we are seeing. Last question to you, Gagan, because we are at the metaverse and the NFTs. Do you see Kidzania, which is more experiential, at some stage going digital?
See, it's quite a possibility. Okay, I can't be predictive, but I'll just share a story when the lockdown happened. Okay, so we are a physical business. So obviously there were no footfalls. Okay, there was nothing coming in from our purpose partners because we were shut. And we really contemplated. So we are headquartered in Mexico, and we were really thinking about why don't we take the entire Kidzania experience on a virtual platform? Let's give them the same thing. So a kid walks in, there is an airport check-in, they'll get money, which is e-currency. They go, they live the experience. And we did pilot, we engaged with an agency, we had even a demo app created. But then what we realized, the business which we are in is touch, feel, and real world living. I can use technology to aid that living.
To scale it.
And scale it.
Yeah.
But this will completely defy the purpose of, what we want to be. But yes, the way metaverse is growing tomorrow, obviously that could be a core. But my just 2 bits on it is, I think animation today has a lot more application in various facets. So, we just had few examples like how you can come forward. Just 2 days ago, I was going through YouTube, I saw this video listing the 8, brilliant websites for free today. And there was this one website which gives you animation access to, I can as a digital marketer build all my social posts, everything. Animation, it's completely free to use. I can pick, choose, change the background, do it, and have a 1-minute animation completely free of cost. But then our thing was, can I have someone, Indianize it and give me like an open press with my characters? So we have our own mascots. So imagine I am through with my, one bucket forever. I can pick, choose, drag, drop, and use them. So I think in a lot of brand solutions, animation can, I feel, play a more active part. And here is where we will request, animators to even think from the brand per se and come to us with, some ideas, some solutions, be it the baby from the Parle-G biscuit packaging, etc.
So very clearly, guys, the opportunities are immense. There are very clear, there are top dollars to be spent on various different experiences. It's just that the creator community will have to think disruptive, think innovative, and radical, to say the least. And that's the only way you can possibly increase the pie. And I think from an advertiser perspective and a brand perspective, I think the industry is ready to spend. I mean, none of the advertisers have at least told me that for a great idea they don't have the money. People will find money. It's all about the top idea, which will eventually bring that money to the table. So on that note, thank you very much, all of you. I think it's been a great panel. Personally, a big immersive learning experience for me, and I'm sure it's been for all of you guys as well. Thanks for having us, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.